You're staring at the screen. Candles dancing, RSI hovering. Your setup is clear. Your plan is solid. You know what to do. But your finger hesitates above the button. Enter, exit, execute. You pause. Not because the chart changed, but because your brain just whispered a warning. What if this is the one that wipes you out? What if this loss breaks you? You don't hear the voice of logic anymore. You hear fear. It's soft, subtle, and believable. Because the fear of loss doesn't scream. It whispers in your mind and tugs at your gut. It disguises itself as caution, as discipline, as being smart, but really it's fear keeping you small. This is the emotional war that traders rarely talk about. It's not the fear of losing money, it's what the loss means to you. Your worth, your skill, your dream. You've tied every red candle to your identity, and that's where the fear takes root. In your first few trades, it felt like fun. But once you went live, once you took a real loss, and then another and another, that's when the shift happened. The charts didn't change. You did. You started seeing risk where there was opportunity. You started seeing pain where there was probability. And now every time you see a clean setup, you hesitate. You don't trust yourself. Not because the market lied to you, but because your mind doesn't want to feel that sting again. So you hold back. You wait too long. You get in too late. Or worse, you don't take the trade at all. And yet, when it wins without you, that's a whole different kind of pain. Let's go deeper. Why is fear of loss so powerful? Because loss threatens your illusion of control. When you lose, your brain interprets it as failure, not of a trade, but of you. That's the root problem. You made your last loss mean something about who you are. That's why it haunts you. But here's the truth. Losing is a feature of the game, not a flaw. You cannot avoid it. You're not supposed to. If you think success in trading means avoiding losses, you've already lost. Professional traders lose all the time. The difference is, they don't make it personal. They don't carry it with them. They don't wear it like a wound. They treat it like data. They detach. You're not afraid of a losing trade. You're afraid of what it will do to your confidence, your sense of progress, your ego. Fear of loss is just your mind protecting your self-image. But in trading, self-image will destroy you. Let me tell you a story. There was a trader who had everything lined up. He studied the charts religiously, knew every technical setup, had the strategy. But after 2 major losing weeks, he couldn't pull the trigger anymore. Every time he tried to enter, his hand shook. His mind played out worst-case scenarios in vivid detail. He saw himself blowing the account, disappointing his family, giving up the dream, all from one red candle. He wasn't trading the chart anymore. He was trading his trauma. That trader wasn't me. But it could have been. It could be any one of us. Because we all experience it. The memory of a loss feels heavier than the weight of logic. Your brain is designed to avoid pain. It's built to protect you. But trading requires you to lean into discomfort, to act in the face of uncertainty. That's the paradox. What makes you human? Emotions, intuition, self-preservation. Those same things will sabotage your progress if left unchecked. So how do you master the fear of loss? You stop making each trade carry your whole identity. You remind yourself 1 loss means nothing. 10 losses mean nothing. The only thing that means anything is whether you followed your process. That's it. Detach your ego from the outcome. You're not trying to be right. You're trying to be consistent. Let the loss happen. Let it burn. Then breathe. Then move on. The more you resist it, the bigger it becomes. But when you embrace loss as part of the system, it shrinks. You no longer fear it. You begin to trust the probabilities. You begin to trade with power, not panic. Fear of loss thrives in silence. It grows when you avoid it. But when you confront it, when you stare it down, it fades. You'll still feel fear, but now it won't control you. Now you can act with it, not because of it. Every great trader had to learn this. You will too. And when you do, the charts will look the same, but you won't. You'll be calm in chaos, disciplined in doubt, focused, even when the market tries to shake you. That's what it means to master the fear of loss. You don't beat it, you coexist with it. But you take the trade anyway because you finally understand the real risk isn't losing money. It's letting fear keep you from the trades that could have changed everything. And here's the part nobody tells you. The fear doesn't completely go away, even after hundreds of trades, even after consistency, even after you've grown the account. There will still be moments where fear shows up again. Sometimes louder, sometimes softer, but it will be there. You'll have days when everything lines up, and yet, something inside hesitates. You'll feel that tightening in your chest, that invisible tension between the part of you that knows the plan and the part of you that still remembers the pain of your last mistake. That's not weakness. That's the residue of experience. But here's what makes the difference. You begin to respond differently. You don't panic. You don't freeze. You don't spiral. Instead, you breathe. You ground yourself. You zoom out. You say, I've been here before, and I came out stronger. That's when you know you're evolving. Because true mastery isn't fearlessness. It's functioning with fear in the room and still executing your plan. Let me paint you a scene. You're in a trade. It starts strong. You're up 30 pips. Everything's going according to plan. Then the market pulls back fast. You watch your floating profits vanish. The candles get aggressive. You feel that internal shift. Your heart rate rises. The what-ifs start. What if it reverses completely? Should I just close now and take what I can? Or should I widen the stop loss? What if it spikes just to hit it? But then something different happens. You pause. You don't touch anything. You go back to your trading journal. You read your rules. You remember the hours of back testing. You remind yourself, my job is to follow the process, not predict the outcome. You sit still. You let the candle close. And then the market does what it was supposed to do all along. It turns around. It hits your take profit. Not because you forced it, but because you didn't interfere. That's a win. Not because of the money, but because of the control, the emotional control. That's what you're actually trading for. Because long-term consistency isn't built on how many green trades you stack. It's built on how many times you didn't let fear ruin a good setup. Fear of loss isn't always loud. Sometimes it shows up as perfectionism. Sometimes as overanalysis. Sometimes as, I'll wait for a better setup, even though the one in front of you is valid. You think you're being cautious, but really you're just avoiding pain. Let me say that again so it sticks. Caution without clarity is just fear wearing a disguise. So how do you train this? How do you build that inner strength? You start by taking small, controlled trades and letting them play out. Even if they hit stop loss, especially if they hit stop loss. Because every time you survive a loss and don't overreact, your brain rewires itself. It starts to realize, I didn't die. I didn't blow the account. I'm still here. And that's how fear begins to loosen its grip. You get stronger every time you don't respond to it. You build confidence every time you trust the plan, even when it hurts. You earn self-respect when you stop chasing wins and start protecting discipline. Here's something powerful to remember. The goal is not to avoid loss. The goal is to become someone who doesn't fall apart because of it. Once you become that trader, everything changes. You stop flinching at red candles. You stop obsessing over win rates. You start seeing losses as tuition, not punishment. You start treating trading like a profession, not a performance. And slowly, you become calm. Not because the market got easier, but because you got stronger. You start to enjoy the process again. You stop checking your phone every 5 minutes. You stop letting your emotions write the story. You're still human, but you're no longer reactive. You're intentional. You're centered. You're dangerous in the best way. So if you're still battling fear right now, good. That means you're in the arena. That means you care. That means you're awake. Just don't let it run the show. The fear will whisper, this trade might lose. You whisper back, and that's okay. Because it's not about being right. It's about being ready. Ready to take the hit and keep moving forward. Losses don't define you. Fear doesn't own you. And mastery is built one decision at a time. So the next time your finger hovers over the entry, the next time your chest tightens, the next time you feel doubt crawling up your back, pause, smile, and take the trade anyway. Because you're not here to play it safe. You're here to become unshakable. You know what's interesting? Fear doesn't only show up in loss. Sometimes it shows up right after a win. Sounds strange, right? But think about it. You've just secured a solid profit. Maybe it was your biggest win so far. And instead of celebrating, you feel tense. You start overanalyzing the next setup. You hesitate. You doubt. Because now, you're afraid of giving it back. It's a different flavor of fear, but it's rooted in the same emotion. Loss. Not the fear of losing what you don't have, but the fear of losing what you just earned. This is how sneaky fear is. It hijacks your high moments and poisons them with anxiety. It whispers, "You got lucky." It whispers, "Don't lose this streak." It whispers, "Play it safe. Sit out. Don't risk it." But trading success isn't built on sitting out. It's built on showing up again and again, whether your last trade was a loss or a win. And the irony? When fear convinces you to protect your wins by not trading, you break the most important rule of all: consistency. You stop taking valid trades. You cherry pick. You doubt your edge. You get stuck in your head, and slowly, without even realizing it, you stop being a trader. You become a spectator. Fear turned you passive. This is why mastering fear of loss isn't just about surviving the bad days. It's about staying clear-headed on the good ones too. Because when you stop executing your system, even in the name of protecting profit, you're giving fear the wheel. So what's the solution? You build a process so bulletproof that your feelings don't get to vote. You predefine risk. You predefine your stop. You predefine your reward. And you stick to it no matter what. You trade it when you're happy. You trade it when you're anxious. You trade it when you're on a winning streak. You trade it after a string of losses. That's what makes you dangerous. Not your strategy, not your win rate, your emotional consistency. That's what fear hates. Fear can't thrive in structure. It thrives in chaos. It feeds on uncertainty, hesitation, doubt. But structure, that's your defense. That's your shield. And here's the truth that very few are willing to accept. If you don't learn to manage fear, you will sabotage your own success. Not because you're unlucky, not because the market is against you, but because you never gave yourself permission to stay in the game. You self-sabotage by avoiding discomfort. You chose to feel safe over being disciplined. You let short-term feelings override long-term vision, and you paid the price. Not in pips, but in progress. But it doesn't have to be that way. You can decide right now that fear no longer runs your trades. You can decide that one loss, two losses, even 10 losses won't define your ability to grow. You can decide that showing up with courage is more valuable than being right. Because here's the secret. Most people don't quit trading because they blew an account. They quit because they couldn't handle the emotions. They couldn't handle being wrong. They couldn't handle the pressure. They couldn't handle the loneliness of taking responsibility for every click. But you're different. You're here because you want to be elite, not just technically, but mentally. You're here because you know deep down the real edge isn't in your entry. It's in your emotional execution. And that edge gets sharper every time you take a trade, despite the fear. Every time you let the stop loss hit and you don't spiral. Every time you hit TP and don't overtrade out of greed. Every time you feel fear and still follow the plan. You're chiseling a new version of yourself. One who doesn't flinch. One who doesn't chase. One who doesn't get derailed by a red candle. That's how you earn confidence. Not from avoiding losses, but from mastering the one thing most traders never do. Themselves. So the next time fear starts creeping in, remember this. You've already felt worse. You've already survived bad trades. You've already doubted yourself before and showed up anyway. You're still here, still studying, still improving, still in the arena. And that means the fear, it's just noise. Let it come. Let it pass. You're on a different path now. One where emotion is data, loss is feedback, and fear is fuel. Let me tell you about Anthony. Anthony was a good trader, Not perfect, not a guru, just solid. He had a simple strategy, used basic indicators, and followed risk management rules like scripture. He wasn't flashy, he wasn't reckless. But every time Anthony was up on a trade, something strange happened. He would stare at the screen, frozen. He wouldn't close the trade. He wouldn't let it run. He would just watch. And as the market danced back and forth, his anxiety would grow. His heart would beat louder than the ticks on the chart. Eventually, the market would reverse, take back the profit, hit break even, sometimes even tap the stop loss, and then the regret would crash in like a tidal wave. He'd whisper to himself, "I knew I should have closed earlier. I saw it." But the truth? He did see it. He just didn't trust himself enough to act. Not because of greed, not because of lack of knowledge, but because of one powerful emotion: fear. The fear of being wrong, the fear of exiting too early, the fear of messing up again. So he sat and watched and did nothing. Anthony wasn't battling the market. He was battling himself. And let's be honest, you've probably been Anthony too. Maybe not with the same setup, but with the same hesitation, the same fear of pulling the trigger, the same fear of exiting too soon or too late, the same doubt that creeps in right before you act. It's not your strategy. It's your brain running old scripts. Scripts that say, if you lose, you've failed. Scripts that say, if you win, you better protect it, or else. Fear is a master storyteller, and when you listen to it too long, its lies start to feel like logic. But what if I told you that your fear isn't the enemy? What if it's just an alarm, a signal that says you're stepping outside your comfort zone? And that's a good thing, because nothing you want lives inside that comfort zone. Your growth, your breakthrough, your account doubling, your mental edge, all of it exists just beyond the walls fear is trying to build. Let me share another story. This one about Alina. Alina was different. She was quiet, methodical, calculated. But when she first started live trading, fear hit her hard. Every time she placed a trade, she'd break out into cold sweats. She'd refresh the chart every 30 seconds. Her whole mood would shift with every pip. One day, she took a trade during a high volatility session. Price went against her instantly. The candles were huge. Her stop loss was tight. And in that moment, she panicked. She closed the trade early, manually, with a small loss, just to avoid watching it hit stop loss. She didn't want to experience the actual loss. She wanted to feel in control. That trade, it reversed 3 minutes later and would have hit her TP exactly. She was devastated, not because of the money, but because she realized her fear cost her more than the loss would have. That was her turning point. From that day on, she created a new rule. She would set her entry, stop, and target, and walk away. No watching, no adjusting, just trust the plan. The first few days were torture, but slowly and she got stronger. She started to feel calm again. Not because the market changed, but because she did. She realized fear doesn't go away by resisting it. Fear dissolves when you stop feeding it attention. You don't fight fear. You train your mind to be still, even when fear screams. And you do that through discipline, structure, process, letting the system do the heavy lifting so your emotions don't have to. You see, mastering fear of loss isn't about becoming emotionless. It's about becoming unshakable. Knowing that a loss doesn't mean you're failing. Knowing that red doesn't mean retreat. Knowing that pain doesn't mean stop. It just means you're human. So ask yourself this: what would your trading look like if you stopped making fear the decision maker? What would change if every trade was just a line on your spreadsheet, not a wound to your self-esteem? How would you trade if fear was just background noise and not the narrator of your story? Because you're not here to win every trade. You're here to become a weapon, a trader so dialed in, so clear, so grounded, that fear no longer steers the wheel. The market doesn't reward bravery, it rewards discipline under pressure, and that discipline is built in the trenches, on the red days, on the choppy days, on the days where fear is loud, and you still follow the plan. That's what separates the gamblers from the pros. Not the size of their wins, not the number of green candles, but the ability to stay steady in the storm. Let that be you. Be the trader who fears less because they trust more. Not in luck, not in signals, but in their own emotional control, in their own growth, in the quiet voice that says, I'm still here, I'm still learning, and I'm not folding. Fear of loss, let it come. Now picture this. You walk into your trading room. The charts are already up, the coffee's hot, the air is still. It's just you and the market. There's no noise yet, no wins, no losses, no emotional residue from yesterday, just possibility. But then you open your trading journal and your mind jumps to last week's losses. You feel it, that low buzz of anxiety humming through your chest. You haven't even placed a trade, and fear is already talking. This is what most people don't understand. Fear is often preloaded. It doesn't just show up during a trade, it walks in with you. It's carried from past mistakes, from old trauma, from unhealed patterns you never addressed. And until you face them, they'll continue to haunt every entry, every setup, every decision. Let's be honest. That one trade you're terrified to take, it's not the trade you fear. It's the feeling that might follow. It's not the money. It's the shame if it goes wrong. It's the sting of, I knew better. But that emotional charge, that's not from this trade. That's a scar from one you didn't forgive yourself for. So here's the hard truth. You cannot master the fear of loss until you learn to forgive yourself for past ones. Read that again. If you still carry guilt from a blown account, if you still beat yourself up for that one over-leveraged trade that wiped out months of progress, if you still replay the should've, would've, could've on losing days, then you're not just trading the market, you're trading your memory. And the market has no mercy for emotional baggage. It doesn't care about your past. It only responds to your present discipline. So if you want to evolve, you need to cut the cord. You need to draw a line between then and now. Start fresh. Zero the emotional ledger. Tell yourself, that was me then. This is who I'm becoming now. Because the fear of loss loses its grip the moment you realize you've already survived it. You're still breathing, still learning, still listening to this, still in the game. So the next time fear whispers, what if this goes wrong? You whisper back, then I'll handle it like I always do, with discipline. Let me give you a mental reframe, one that elite traders use all the time. Losses aren't punishment, they're tuition. You're paying to learn how to think, how to react, how to stay calm under pressure. Every red candle is feedback. Every stop loss is a class. And if you treat it that way, not emotionally, but intelligently, you grow fast. That's the trader who levels up. Not the one with the perfect strategy, but the one who extracts wisdom from every mistake. Here's another story. This one about a guy named Marcus. Marcus was obsessed with not losing. Every time he lost, even small trades, he'd spiral. He'd go silent. He'd reread all his trading books. He'd tweak his system over and over. He'd delete and re-download MetaTrader twice a week. Why? Because he wasn't just afraid of losing money. He was afraid of being wrong. His ego couldn't handle red. Every loss dented his identity. Every mistake felt like proof he was a fraud. Until one day his mentor told him something that flipped the switch. The market isn't testing your strategy, Marcus. It's testing your character. That line broke something open. From that moment on, Marcus decided to stop hiding behind perfection. He embraced red days. He started tracking emotional triggers. He started rating his discipline, not just his profits. And that shift, it changed everything. His equity curve became steadier. His confidence grew. He finally detached identity from outcome. He wasn't scared of being wrong anymore, because being wrong didn't mean being weak. It meant he was still learning, and learning means progress. So what does that mean for you? It means the faster you stop fearing loss, the faster you gain freedom. Freedom to take the trade without shaking. Freedom to follow your plan without hesitation. Freedom to lose and not collapse emotionally. Because you've stopped treating every loss like a verdict. It's just data, nothing more, nothing less. And here's the deeper level. When you truly accept loss as part of the process, not a sign of failure, your entire nervous system calms down. Your shoulders relax, your mind sharpens, your presence deepens. You stop fighting the market, you start flowing with it. You don't chase anymore. You don't run from drawdown. You sit centered and execute like a machine with a human heart. That's where greatness lives, not in perfect trades, but in perfect emotional execution. Fear will still knock on the door, but now it finds no one home. Because the person you're becoming, they've already made peace with the worst case scenario and moved on. Let me take you somewhere. Imagine you're 10 years into the future. You're no longer trading for survival. You're trading with a calm presence. You know exactly who you are on the charts. No more flinching. No more panicking when price moves against you. No more revenge trades. No more hesitation. You're trusted, respected. Maybe you manage capital for others. Maybe you trade only your own. But either way, your relationship with fear, it's changed forever. And the reason why, it's not because the market changed. It's because you did. You rewired your mind. You stopped expecting certainty from an uncertain game. You stopped asking for comfort in a business built on risk. You stopped begging for guarantees. And you started to become the one constant in your trading system. Not your indicators, not your win rate. You. Because while everyone else was running from discomfort, you ran into it. You faced the hard truths, like the fact that no trade is safe, that even the best setups fail. That confidence doesn't come from avoiding losses. It comes from knowing you can absorb them, learn, and still execute with clarity. Let's be real. Traders don't blow accounts because they took one bad trade. They blow accounts because fear infected their decision-making. Fear told them, just move the stop loss. It's not ready yet. Fear told them, double the position to get it back. Fear told them, don't close it. It'll come back. And in those moments, logic dies, discipline dies, progress dies. But awareness, that's your sword. The more aware you are of fear's voice, the less power it has. Let me tell you a quick story. There was a young trader named Ruben. He learned the hard way, every step. First account, gone in 3 weeks. Second account, lost half in 2 days during NFP. He almost quit, but he made a vow. I will not let my emotions ruin this dream. So he did something radical. He stopped trading for 2 months, not because he gave up, but because he realized he didn't know himself yet. He spent that time journaling, not just trades, but feelings. He wrote down when he felt anxious. He wrote about what losing triggered. He wrote about childhood memories of scarcity, of failure, of pressure to perform. He made the connection. His fear of loss wasn't even about trading. It was about proving himself. It was about needing to be perfect so no one could say he didn't deserve to win. Trading was just the battlefield, but the war was internal. And once he saw that, everything shifted. He came back different. He risked less. He trusted more. He didn't chase. He didn't rush. He started focusing on one trade a day, no more. He became process-driven, emotionally detached. He'd say, I'm not here to be right. I'm here to be consistent. And slowly, as the curve turned, losses came, but they didn't shake him. Wins came, but they didn't seduce him. He became unshakable, and you can too. But it won't happen by accident. It happens by leaning into the discomfort, not running from it. It happens when you stop making fear the villain and start using it as a compass. Because if you're scared to take a trade, but it aligns with your plan, that's probably the one you need to take. If you're afraid to hold through drawdown, but the setup is valid, that's probably the moment that will define your growth. And here's the kicker. The fear doesn't mean don't do it. It means pay attention. Fear isn't always a stop sign. Sometimes it's a spotlight, pointing you toward the exact edge you need to sharpen. Think about it. The more you resist it, the more power it gains. But the moment you welcome it, breathe through it, move with it, the fear gets smaller. You realize I can feel fear, and still take action. And that's freedom. Not that fear disappears, but that it no longer dictates your behavior. Because when your actions stop being emotionally reactive, that's when mastery begins. It doesn't mean you never feel pressure. It means pressure doesn't push you off your plan. It doesn't mean you don't lose. It means you lose gracefully, with clarity, with purpose, without drama. That's a real trader, someone who walks into every session knowing the risk, knowing the uncertainty, and choosing to show up anyway, choosing to trust the edge, choosing to trust their preparation, choosing to let go of what they can't control. Because fear, it only controls what you give it access to. When you stop feeding it with overthinking, doubt, and self-pity, it starves. And what grows in its place? Confidence, stillness, focus, the quiet power of someone who's not here to gamble, but to build something real. So if you're still feeling that tension in your gut, good, that means you care. Just don't let it paralyze you. Use it, channel it. Let it sharpen your awareness. But never, never let it stop you from playing your hand. Because the greatest traders, they've all felt fear. There's something powerful that happens when you stop trying to trade without fear and start learning to trade through it. It's like learning to surf. You don't stand on the shore hoping the waves calm down. You paddle into the chaos. You learn to read the rhythm. You fall. You get wiped out. You panic. And then one day, you catch it. Not because the wave got smaller, but because you got stronger. That's what trading through fear feels like. At first, every move feels dangerous. You double-check everything. You hesitate. You sabotage. But over time, with experience, you start moving different, calmer, cleaner, more present. You start to feel the rhythm of the market, not just with your strategy, but with your nervous system. Let me tell you about Naomi. Naomi was a scalper. She loved quick moves, fast pips, in and out. But she also had a secret habit. She over-leveraged in silence. Why? Because she feared small gains weren't enough. She feared missing out. She feared being too slow in a game that felt like speed equals success. And for a while it worked. Her early wins gave her confidence. Her screenshots on Instagram got likes. She felt like she was rising fast. Until that one day. She entered 3 trades at once. All looked good. All aligned. But she doubled lot size across the board. And then the news hit. Whipsaw. All 3 positions slammed into drawdown at once. She didn't know what to close first. She froze. She widened her stops. She whispered, "Please come back. Please." It didn't. She lost 70% of her account in 15 minutes. She didn't tell anyone. She cried alone. Not because of the money, but because of what she realized. She wasn't trading. She was gambling with fear in disguise. Her confidence had been built on speed, not substance. That loss? It broke her ego, but it built her awareness. She went silent online. She stopped posting results. She stopped trying to impress people who weren't in the arena. And she rebuilt from scratch. Smaller size, slower pace, more clarity. She redefined winning, not as green days, but as emotionally clean execution. She started winning again, but this time not from adrenaline, from alignment. And she learned something few traders ever do. When fear is driving your need to win fast, you're not chasing profit. You're running from stillness. Let that land. Sometimes fear shows up not as hesitation, but as hyperactivity. You feel like you have to be in a trade. You feel like the market owes you something. You feel like quiet means failure. But real mastery, it's boring sometimes. It's sitting through hours of no setup. It's watching price hover near entry and not forcing it. It's letting the plan work, even when it takes longer than you like. Because fear loves urgency. It wants action. It screams, "Do something now." But discipline whispers, "Wait." Patience pays. And that whisper, that's your edge. The edge most people will never develop because it can't be bought. You earn it, trade by trade, breath by breath, by choosing to pause when fear says panic, by choosing to reduce size when fear says double up, by choosing to walk away from the screen when fear wants you glued to every tick. You begin to break the emotional chains. You stop reacting. You start responding. And in that shift, you realize something huge. You are not your thoughts. You are not your fear. You are not your last trade. You're the awareness behind all of it, the observer, the strategist, the one in charge. And that shift in identity, that's where the real growth happens. Because most traders build skills, but never rebuild self. They grow in knowledge, but stay small in mindset. And until that internal shift happens, the fear of loss will always have an open door. You'll feel like a victim of the market. But you're not. You're just untrained emotionally, that's all. And the beautiful thing, that part is fully in your control. You may not control the candles. You may not control slippage. You may not control news volatility, but you do control how you breathe, how you prepare, how you exit, how you respond to loss. And when you train that, you become immune to panic. You become immune to FOMO, to ego, to needing every trade to validate your worth. Because you realize you've already won when you followed your plan. That's what most won't get. They think the green number's the win. But the real win was saying no to fear, was walking away from that tempting overtrade, was holding through the drawdown without doubt, was sticking to your rules when everything screamed to break them. And that kind of win, it compounds, not in your account first, but in your mind. Until eventually, loss doesn't sting the way it used to. It becomes familiar, neutral, normal.